Hello again. Today, I'm pleased to bring to you the second episode of Thoughtful Thursday. This week, I decided to link what I discussed in Two Cents Tuesday with my book recommendation for Thoughtful Thursday. It's my version of a crossover episode. If you recall, on this week's Two Cents Tuesday, I spoke of the need for us to set bold, audacious, transformational goals for St. Lucia. Goals that would change the development trajectory of our country and our people. I refer to these goals as moonshot goals. When I was putting together the vlog for Two Cents Tuesday this week, the country that kept coming to mind is the one we often hear referenced whenever there's a comparison between St. Lucia and a country, an island of similar size that is a high achiever. And that country is Singapore. Singapore is 283 square miles in area, which makes it roughly the same size with St. Lucia, which, as you know, is 238 square miles. However, that is where the comparisons end. Singapore has a population of 5.5 million people. Ours is 175,000. Singapore's total economic output, as measured by its GDP, is 600 billion. Ours is 2.5 billion. Singapore's GDP per capita is 102,742, which makes it the second highest in the world. Our GDP per capita is 13,708. Singapore ranks 11th in the world in the Human Development Index, which provides a measure of a country's social and economic development. St. Lucia is ranked 86th in the world. Since its independence on the 9th of August 1965, Singapore has had only one party hold the reins of power, the People's Action Party. Since our independence in 1979, St. Lucia has had 6 changes of government. During the post-independence period of 56 years, Singapore has had 3 prime ministers, while St. Lucia has had 9 prime ministers during its 43 years of independence. However, Singapore has not always ranked this high in so many economic and social indicators. Its impressive rise to the top is the result of a carefully planned and executed vision and development agenda that was orchestrated by its first Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew. Lee Kuan Yew had a bold, audacious moonshot goal, which was to transform Singapore from a third world country to a first world country. And these are his words, not mine. And this is articulated in the book that I'm recommending today, which is called From Third World to First, The Singapore Story, 1965 to 2000, written by Lee Kuan Yew. This book makes fascinating reading. First of all, when you read it, you will quickly realize why it is very difficult to copy or follow Singapore's path to development. There are things that Lee Kuan Yew did that were controversial even back in the 1960s and 1970s, but which will be virtually impossible now. In fact, in the preface to the book, Lee Kuan Yew states very clearly that, I quote, "This is not a how-to book, whether to build an economy, an army, or a nation. It is an account of the problems my colleagues and I faced and how we set about solving them," unquote. For example, in the section on nurturing and attracting talent, he recounts how he instituted a national policy to get men with university degrees to marry women with university degrees, because the statistics from the 1980 Singapore census had shown that while nearly half of the university graduates in Singapore were women, nearly 2/3 of them were unmarried. According to Lee Kuan Yew, and I quote, "Our best women were not reproducing themselves because men who were their educational equals did not want to marry them," unquote. He had also noticed that, again, I quote, "better educated women had compounded the problem by having much fewer children than the less educated," unquote. Needless to say, his policy response to this was not universally popular. However, he also did other things to attract the talent pool, or to increase, the talent pool in this country, such as actively recruiting entrepreneurs, professionals, artists, and highly skilled workers from the pools of Asian students in universities in the United Kingdom, United States of America, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. Lee Kuan Yew's philosophy of attracting and working with the best extended to his assignment of ministerial portfolios in his cabinet. In his words, I quote, "No prime minister can achieve much without an able team," unquote. He saw the role of the prime minister as being similar to that of the conductor of an orchestra. He told his ministers what he wanted them to achieve, and he left them to get on with the task, something he called management by objective. However, he intervened when he had to, because in his words, I quote, "Ultimately, responsibility for a government's failure rests with the prime minister," unquote. One of the areas for which Singapore has been criticized is its approach to press freedom. And Lee Kuan Yew speaks about this in this book. He explains that he, quote, "did not accept that newspaper owners had the right to print whatever they liked," unquote. Because in his opinion, quote, "freedom of the press, freedom of the news media must be subordinated to the overriding needs of Singapore and to the primary purpose of an elected government," unquote. This is probably why Singapore is currently ranked 158th out of 180 countries in the Worldwide Press Freedom Index. The book, From Third World to First, is a very interesting and informative account of the evolution, the metamorphosis of Singapore into an international powerhouse, not just in the Southeast Asian area, but globally. Its port facilities are among the best in the world, and anyone who has passed through Singapore's Changi Airport can attest to this. Singapore is a country that takes itself very seriously and takes great pride in the skills, discipline, and productivity of its people. Most of that is built on the foundation that Lee Kuan Yew set, which he explains in this book. What makes From Third World to First recommended reading is how clearly it shows that national development does not happen by accident. It has to be carefully planned and meticulously implemented by people who are competent to do so. It requires discipline and commitment. And very often, it involves taking difficult and unpopular decisions. It also needs political stability and continuity. Lee Kuan Yew set very ambitious goals for his country. He was not constrained by how others saw Singapore. He saw what Singapore could become, and he set out to make that happen with the help of his ministers. While, as he said in the book, his is not a blueprint that everyone can follow, there are many very salient lessons in there for St. Lucia. It could be persuasively argued that presently, St. Lucia is the antithesis of Singapore, and this does not bode well for us. From Third World to First is available on Amazon in paperback for $26.92 and hardcover for $24.49. Thank you for sharing this time with me on Thoughtful Thursday. Goodbye.